Congratulations on your new baby. You're going to receive a lot of advice as an expectant father. In this video, I want to cover some of the worst advice that you and your wife are going to hear, so you're prepared to nip it in the bud. My name is Marcus, but you can call me Mr. Homemaker. I've been with my wife Kristen since 2012, and we had our first of 3 children in 2016. Among several essential lessons I want to pass along before this video is over, I'll help you explain to your wife that just like she has to eat for 2 now, you also have to drink for 3. But first, let's discuss how to handle a pregnant woman. For any expectant mothers who stumbled across this video, I invite you to share this video with your husband and then promptly stop watching. As my wife Kristen put it,
and wives, give your husbands the space to figure this out without feeling accused or put upon.
The first piece of bad advice you're likely to hear about how to handle a pregnant woman will sound something like this. Your pregnant wife is going through so many physical, mental, and emotional changes, none of which you will ever experience, that you shouldn't even bother trying to understand. You just need to be sympathetic and affirming of her feelings and actions. Other than that, just brace for impact. What's wrong with this advice is you're not doing her any favors by affirming her feelings and actions if those are irrational and harmful. It is true that your wife is going through a lot, and it's true that much of it will remain a mystery to you forever. But it's a big mistake for you to disassociate with what she's going through, because if you do that, you're increasing her mental and emotional burden by first forcing her to carry those burdens alone. Sympathy and affirmation have their place, but if those are your only moves, or if you react to everything with sympathy and affirmation, there's a real risk of failing to give your wife the support she truly needs. The real reason people give men this advice is that they don't think that you, as a husband and father, are competent enough to figure out how to support your wife in a meaningful way. And that is a cop-out at best and an insult of your intelligence and intentions at worst. See, a lot of us have this idea that our wives are these pregnancy experts and that they've got it all figured out. They don't need our input. But here's the truth. Most women are just as scared and confused about what's going to happen during their pregnancy as their husbands are. I mean, think about it. We guys don't get any kind of education on this stuff. We're just expected to figure it out as we go. Well, the secret is the same goes for your wives. Sure, they may have read a few articles or talked to some friends, but that doesn't make them experts. And unfortunately, a lot of the information out there about pregnancy is pretty scary. It seems like every time you turn around, someone's telling you about some horrible complication or terrifying symptom. And while it's important to be informed, we also need to remember that not everything we read or hear is necessarily true or applicable to our own situation. So my advice to you is this. Don't be afraid to ask questions and offer your support to your wife during this exciting but sometimes scary time. She may not know all the answers. With your help, the two of you can figure things out together and make this pregnancy a little less overwhelming. But don't take my word for it. Here's Kristen describing how she felt during her first pregnancy.
Because what I didn't realize was that there are lots of different approaches to pregnancy and childbirth. And when you buy all of the books, there's a lot of information, a lot of it conflicts with one another. It's very stressful. There are books that tell you the worst case on every possible thing that could happen, prescriptive books on what you should and shouldn't eat. It's very overwhelming. And every mom wants to tell you their birth story, and that is wonderful and lovely. But very often they are terrible and terrifying, and it is going to stress your wife out. So just be aware that beyond her control, people are going to start offering her all sorts of information.
So when someone tells you to just be sympathetic and affirming of your pregnant wife, you say, I'm not going to make my wife figure this all out on her own. Sure, I'm going to give her emotional support, but I'm also going to make sure that we both learn everything we need to know to have a healthy, happy pregnancy and birth. The first step toward achieving this is establishing a shared calendar with your wife. Somewhere where you can keep track of all the appointments related to pregnancy, including doctor's visits, ultrasounds, and classes. This will allow you to plan your schedule accordingly and ensure that you, as her husband, the father of this child, are there wherever you're needed. Moreover, a shared calendar provides a platform where the two of you can communicate and deconflict about different things that work, family, and this pregnancy are demanding of you. Ideally, you'll identify and deconflict those things far enough in advance that this won't become a source of tension in your marriage. You'll also need to get yourself a good reference book explaining pregnancy to men. I highly recommend Dad's Expecting Too, which Kristen actually handed to me 6 weeks after our wedding day to let me know that she was pregnant. What I love about Dad's Expecting Too is that it's written in a clear and succinct style, making it easy to quickly digest a lot of unfamiliar material and jargon. It also covers some important marital twists and turns that pregnancy brings with it. Moreover, the book provides a practical advice on how to navigate the healthcare system, communicate with your wife and your doctors, and prepare for childbirth and the postpartum period. This information is invaluable for expectant fathers as it helps to ensure that you're able to be supportive and informed throughout the entire pregnancy. The second piece of common bad advice is to obey your pregnant wife. It usually sounds something like this. Do whatever she says, give her whatever she asks for, and pick up the slack around the house when she can't keep up with it all. If your wife is struggling to keep up with household duties while she's pregnant, then you, my friend, have already dropped the ball. The good news is that it's never too late to start moving in the right direction. You just need to understand your role as a husband and father better. Before this pregnancy, very likely the biggest gauntlet the two of you have navigated together was planning and hosting your wedding. Let's talk about the difference between the role of husbands during wedding planning versus their role during pregnancy and childbirth. Wedding planning can often feel superficial and like something that happens to husbands who are relegated to a supporting role. Women often have strong opinions about every detail of their wedding before they even met you. The best you can hope for is to handle a few details without her being too upset at the end. However, when it comes to pregnancy and childbirth, the role of a husband is much more significant. The physical and emotional changes that a woman goes through during pregnancy and childbirth require more significant types and levels of support. Your wife is going to be confused, nervous, vulnerable, and in the throes of childbirth, she will be wholly dependent upon your ability to advocate for her and your child. While wedding planning and hosting can be an enjoyable experience for some husbands, the weight of pregnancy and childbirth requires a different level of proactive and focused responsibility on husbands' parts. This is a watershed event on the journey of learning to manage your household. So what does that look like? First, proactively learn what needs to get done and take ownership of making sure it actually gets done. Don't avoid, ignore, or be dismissive of new household responsibilities coming on the scene. And don't wait passively for your wife to tell you what needs to be done. Unlike her wedding, your wife probably has little or no more information than you do about this chapter of your life. Number 2, insist on taking some household chores off of her plate before she asks. New burdens are being placed on her that you can't equally share, like carrying a baby in your womb. But you can and should rebalance the chores to account for that. Remember this, you do what you can, so she can do what you can't. Here's how you approach it. You ask her what household chore she finds the most exhausting. That's number 1. Then you ask her what chore she feels most stressed by when it isn't done. That's number 2. Then you tell her that you are going to take responsibility for those 2 things in your household from now on. she is forbidden from doing them.
And that I could see that he was always looking out for ways to make life a little bit easier. So, making sure that my water was always filled, going and making sure that we had, like, what groceries do we need, helping to build our grocery list and helping to prep meals and do things. It kind of just took some things off of my plate so that I could be more focused on my wellness and the baby and preparing for what was ahead.
So when someone tells you to do whatever your wife says, you tell them, I'm a grown man. I don't need my wife to tell me what I need to do. I'm going to ensure that the two of us figure it out and work together. The first and possibly the most important step you can take to achieve this is to guide your wife toward taking the Bradley Birth Method classes with you. What I appreciate most about Bradley Method is the emphasis on equipping husbands with the knowledge and skills necessary to coach and guide their wives through all stages of pregnancy and childbirth. The Bradley Method helped Kristen and I feel confident that we had the knowledge and skills to navigate a very complex gauntlet of childbirth. Everything from knowing exactly when to go to the hospital to the risks and benefits of various medical interventions that might be on the table as her birth progresses. 3 children later, we still talk about Bradley classes were probably the most beneficial thing we did to prepare.
What made me feel most comfortable and confident and prepared was knowing that my husband was right there alongside me, that he knew just as much as I did about kind of the process of what was going to happen.
While Bradley classes will focus on pregnancy, childbirth, and caring for your newborn, you also need to get you and your wife working together to identify and navigate changes in your marriage, your relationship, and your lifestyle that come along with growing your family from 2 to 3. On that front, I strongly recommend Expectant Parents by Suzanne Hadley Goslin. Unlike other pregnancy books that conspicuously omit the role of a father, Goslin provides a roadmap for couples to follow together. By emphasizing the importance of prioritizing your marriage, Goslin encourages and guides you to deepen and strengthen your relationship as you prepare to welcome your new baby into your family. Without a book like this one, most books are written by and for women alone. And this is a terrible dynamic because it reinforces the idea in a pregnant woman's mind that she is a sole operator and that her husband is just a background character. This leads to miscommunication, disappointment, and resentment throughout pregnancy and down the road. Expectant Parents, on the other hand, provides a great vehicle for having the important conversations as a couple to set you up for success. It will help you get on the same page about how to flourish as a couple through this time. It does a great job of bringing common perceptions and expectations to the surface so you can avoid that miscommunication and disappointment. Each chapter ends with some topics and prompts that you can use to stimulate a warm and productive conversation with your wife. The book also does a really good job of balancing encouragement with realism. It's a mix of affirmation with ego checks, level-headed warnings against perfectionism, and against worst-case scenarios. I highly recommend this book and maybe even get 2 copies so that you and your wife can read it at the same time. I suggest reading 1 chapter each week. They're only like 10 or 12 pages each. And then having a little date each weekend so that you can work your way through this book starting in the middle of the first trimester and ending in the middle of the second, which is around the time most people start their Bradley Birth Method classes. Now, as a quick reminder, there are links below for these and all the books, websites, and the tools and templates that I've tried to gather together or create to help you manage your growing household. And the third advice, or more typically the pressure some people will try to put on you as an expectant father, is to subject yourself to hardships in solidarity. This most often takes the form of saying, now that she can't drink coffee or alcohol, I guess you'll have to give it up too, huh? To be fair. I want to be clear that chemical dependency is bad, and being drunk or hungover all the time is also bad. And going out to shut down the bar with your buddies on a regular basis, that's going to become a more rare occurrence now that you're growing your family. While some lifestyle adjustments come with growing your family, that doesn't mean that you should make yourself miserable or push yourself to exhaustion. You need to take care of your own physical and mental health and invest in your personal resilience. It's not about trying to even the score with your wife or make her feel better by making yourself miserable. Rather, simply ask yourself, am I fulfilling my responsibilities to my wife and child the best I can? Quitting your morning coffee cold turkey or giving up beer while you're watching the game on TV probably won't accomplish anything other than undermining your overall performance as a husband. You need to put on your own oxygen mask before assisting others and take care of your own well-being so that you can take care of hers. You can still be a hero, volunteer to build a crib while you watch the game from home, but don't let anyone shame you for enjoying a cold one while you build it. And while it's great to skip a night out or a weekend trip with the guys so that you can go help your wife shop for diaper bags, make sure you both have time to recharge individually and together, drawing energy from friends and family. So when someone inevitably insinuates that you're selfishly drifting through your own life while your wife's life is turned upside down, you tell them, my top priority is making sure both of us are physically and mentally navigating the stresses of pregnancy and preparing to welcome our baby home. Since you giving up coffee and beer will not accomplish that, let's identify what actually will. As an expectant father, this is your time to step up and actively cultivate the healthy habits for both you and your wife. Experts will be providing you with plenty of reliable advice on nutrition during the Bradley courses and OBGYN appointments, so take advantage of that. But it's not just about nutrition. You need to prioritize exercise and sleep and stress management for both of you, and particularly so your wife is physically prepared for childbirth. Don't forget about mental and emotional health. Have a conversation with your wife about healthy activities that help recharge her batteries and yours. Again, the book Expectant Parents is an excellent guide to this and related conversations that I wish Kristen and I had earlier to avoid or more quickly resolve the challenges of transitioning from a couple to a family of 3 and now to 5. While we've focused on the transitions, challenges, and responsibilities unique to men preparing for the arrival of their first child, there are a few related topics around marriage, fatherhood, and family life that we dive into in other video series. So I look forward to seeing you over there.